Good morning, esteemed panelists. My group mates, Ms. Baldecanas, Mr. Bernas, and I are pleased to present our research on the effect of parachute towing on running speed among female athlete sprinters. The parachute towing will serve as the intervention where a parachute is attached to the athlete's waist to create resistance as they run and will be used as the independent variable for our study. The speed will be the dependent variable, and this will be measured before and after the training program to determine the effect of parachute towing. And the female athlete sprinters are the participants for this study.
Sprints is an outdoor running athletic competition included in track and field events that features running at the fastest pace to cover a certain distance, making running speed an integral component of this sport. Thus, a well-structured and scientifically sound training program is recognized and implemented by coaches. A study by Haugen et al. 2019 found that sprint performance is strongly linked to an athlete's maximal horizontal power output. Assisted sprint and resisted sprint training are the two specific programs that are typically used to improve running speed. In our study, the resisted sprint training or RST will be utilized, which is a strength-specific training and applies an overload by towing a sled, parachute, or wearing a weighted vest. Here are existing related literature for our study. According to Cahill et al. 2023, sprint-specific methods of training such as RST has shown to improve sprint performance in young rugby and lacrosse athletes to a greater extent. Gladhill et al. 2022 found that compared to no resistance, a large parachute is the most effective tool for overloading the body. The effects of RST with the ball on speed and agility performance among soccer players was investigated by Sal Deralan et al. 2024. Utilizing a very heavy resistance loads in training improved soccer players' horizontal force production during sprints compared to non-resisted sprinting. This is according to Morin et al. 2017. Parachute resistance has a velocity-dependent nature, highlighted by Salerno et al. 2023, who observed that as running speed increases, so does resistive force, consequently enhancing power output at higher velocities. While the effects of parachute resistance on various sports on running kinematics and kinetics have been studied, the impact of parachute towing combined with a structured training protocol remains unexplored. This study aims to explore whether a 4-week parachute towing added to a standard training protocol will have an effect on running speed of female athlete sprinters.
Statement of the problem. The main problem of the study is what is the effect of adding parachute towing to a structured training protocol on running speed among adolescent female sprinters. Specifically, it aims to answer the following questions. First, what are the demographic profile of the participants as to age, height, weight, or body mass? Second, what are the pre-test and post-test scores of the athletes who only followed the 3-day sprint training block every week for 4 weeks? Third, what are the pre-test and post-test scores of the athletes with parachute towing added to the 3-day sprint training block? Fourth, is there a significant difference between the speed, pre-test, and post-test scores of the athletes who only followed the 3-day sprint training block? Fifth, is there a significant difference between the speed, pre-test, and post-test scores of the athletes with the parachute towing added to the 3-day sprint training block? And lastly, is there a significant difference between the speed, post-test results between athletes with parachute towing added in the 3-day sprint training block and athletes who only follow the 3-day sprint training block every week for 4 weeks? Consequently, these following questions are aligned with our objectives of the study and the statement of hypothesis.
The result of this research would be beneficial to the following: student researchers, physical therapists, young sprinters, and future researchers. Conceptual framework. According to Wolff's law, bones will adapt to the degree of mechanical loading such that an increase in loading will cause the bone to strengthen. The figure shows our independent and dependent variable. Parachute-resisted sprint training combined with structured training protocol, and the structured training protocol alone will be independent variable, while the running speed is our dependent variable.
Now let's proceed to methodology. For research design, this study is a quantitative through experimental study method that will employ a pretest and posttest. The intervention will be conducted in Iloilo Sports Complex located at the Paz, Iloilo City during the academic year 2025-2026. A large overall effect size of 0.95, an alpha error of 0.05, and desired power of 0.90 were calculated using Cohen's method, and the total sample size resulted in 24 participants.
Sample inclusion and exclusion criteria. For inclusion, female junior high school sprint athletes, 13 to 16-year-old, enrolled either in public or private schools in Iloilo City, completed at least one PRISA 100, 200, or 400-meter sprint race. For exclusion, history or current medical conditions, example given, cardiac and pulmonary conditions, and any sports-related injury.
The data gathering procedure is divided into 3 phases. For the phase 1, we have pre-intervention protocol. Under this protocol, we have our ethical approval, letters, written questionnaire, and consent form and participant information sheet that will be given to our participants. Under this protocol, we'll also have our first meeting. For our phase 2, the experimental period will be based on a study by Dr. Janavi Kulkarni and Dr. Pradeep Borkar entitled Sprint Stronger, Sprint Faster: The Impact of Resisted Sprint Training on Sprint Performance, a randomized controlled trial conducted and was published last June 6, 2025. Lastly, for our phase 3, a post-test will be conducted and a comparison between the single pre-test and single post-test will be done to measure the effect in speed of the athletes.
Statistical tools and data analysis. A descriptive statistics will be used such as mean and standard deviation to compute the results of all pre-test and post-test scores obtained from both control and experimental groups. Inferential statistics such as paired sample t-tests and independent t-tests will be used to determine the significant pre-test and post-test scores of each athlete and to compare the average post-test scores of both groups respectively. And the data that will be collected will be presented in a tabular form. To ensure the rights, safety, and well-being of the participants, an informed consent will be obtained prior to participation. The researchers will keep the participants' identity confidential at all times. And to uphold the integrity of the researchers will also adhere to high ethical values throughout the study. The next few slides contains our appendices. Appendix A, Timetable of Activities. Appendix B, Budget. Appendix C, Informed Consent. And Appendix D, Letter of Recruitment. And that is all for our presentation. We are now open to your comments and questions. Thank you for your time and for listening.